Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. للعقيدة مستقيم الله في كل أمري استعين الله في كل أمري أمجيد إنني أعطي له تحياتي والسلام لكم وإنه ربي غفور رحيم محمد سيدنا مكبوبنا إنه كان رسولا من النبيين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته للإخواني وإخواتي في دين وسلام على من اتبع هدى للإخواني إخواتي في أمريكا وأوروبا وإفريقيا وآسيا وكل مكان أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أهلا وسهلا بكم كيف حالكم وعائلتكم Thank you, my brothers and sisters. Bina, thank you, my dear sister, for coming. Thank you, my dear sister, Amina. And give my salams to the brothers and sisters who may show up in the future. I continue the series on the Asıl fi Aqida, the fundamentals of faith, Islamic faith. And we've been talking about Tawheed, and we have branched into the areas what nullifies the Muslim and his Islam. And there are serious implications, as I've talked about. And as I prefaced, if you looked at the heading, I talked about how the enemies and the hypocrites don't want these particular the Nواقض Islam to be talked about, because they don't want to wake up the Muslims. They want the Muslims to stay in a slumber. They want the Muslims to continue on towards modernization and away from Islam. So when a scholar or a student of knowledge comes forward to bring the people back by saying, look, this is what you're doing, and you're wrong, and these are Nواقض of Islam Ashra, meaning the nullifiers of Islam, and you're doing this wrong. It wakes the people up. They don't want that, because the enemies of Islam and the hypocrites want to bring the people to a quote unquote a new Islam, which they dominate. So the Nواقض Islam is not new. It's many centuries old. And the Sheikh Islam who authored this was Mujaddid, and he was a reformer. He was coming at a time again when Islam was weak. And as I always explained, the beauty of Islam, our Prophet ﷺ has told us how the Subhanahu wa Ta'ala brings forth every 100 years or so a mujaddid, a reformer, to come back to revive the Quran and the Sunnah, and he was one of them. So with that said, we're going into the fourth nullifier and cover the fifth one, inshallah ta'ala, as well. Before I get into that, I know that the Nواقض of Islam, Ashra, rubs a lot of people wrong, especially those in the West, because they live in a toxic environment and they have to be around the disbelievers because they work with disbelievers. When they go to a restaurant to eat, they sit with disbelievers. They go to a movie or something, they sit with disbelievers. They're walking down the street, they're walking among disbelievers. And many of them may feel that the Muslims and the ulama and fuqaha of Islam is calling them disbelievers. This is not the case. And we know that the Muslims, because I lived in the United States, so I know 50 years, I know the pressures of even being a black person there in the United States. And then couple that with being a Muslim, that's a double whammy. So this is something we have to reconcile. And as Muslims, you know, we have rules and we have to abide by those rules. There's no such thing as the modern Islam, or there's African Islam, or there's European or American Islam, or LA Islam. There's only one Islam and we have to follow that. So now we go into the fourth nullifier in Islam. And it's the third one, as you remember, I talked about it. It was a serious one. It governs your relationship with disbelievers. And if you did certain things, you became an apostate. You apostated out from the religion. Number 4 in itself, too, is also a very serious one. And I'll read this in English. Whoever believes that other than Prophet's guidance, may God bless him and grant him peace, is more complete than his guidance. And that the rule of someone else is better than his rule, such as the one who prefers the rule of tyrants over his own, then he is a disbeliever. This one here rings home today, especially among the rulers of the 57 countries, 57 Islamic nations, countries. And the fuqaha ulama are in constant battle about this particular, because we have majority of our rulers now, they don't rule by the Quran and Sunnah. They pick here and there. So they don't know the hard line who go strictly by fundamentals, say that the rulers and others are disbelievers. Then we have the others who say no, because of the situations, they can't be that unless we quiz them and ask them questions. No one is in position today to ask any ruler anything, because we don't have this kind of power anymore. We don't have a centralized jurisprudence where we have a qadi, a judge, and we have a senior scholar present, and then someone goes to these rulers and asks them, well, why are you using democracy, or why are you using your own laws? No one can do that. So therefore, why the Muslim community today is in disarray, especially in the 57 countries of the states, the Islamic states, is because this particular one here, they don't rule by the Sunnah, and many of them don't, and this is a problem. And so, how do we reconcile this? Even a Muslim who is not a ruler, he's not a governor, he's not a mayor, he is still governed by this as well. And we see this in Muslim countries, we see this everywhere. We see the Muslims, as I kind of spoke about this last week, running away from the Sunnah. They prefer many to now look like Frenchmen, Americans, Chinese, Russians. They prefer to even look like them, and they even copy their ways and means, even their dress style. Even the Prophet is told and warned and told the Muslims not to do it. But he did say in hadith, in a very sorrowful hadith, he did say that the Muslims would mimic one day the Jews and the Christians. And the words of the Prophet ﷺ is highly, highly true, because we see this today to the point, as we talked about many times, we see a guy, we don't know if he's Muslim. He says he's Muslim, but there's nothing Islamic about him. And many of them don't have nothing to do with Islam, but they just say they're Muslim. This here talks about these type of persons because they feel that the ways and means of the Tubab again, meaning the European, white American, white European, that their ways and means are better than the prophets. Many of them have said this, but many of them won't say this in public. They'll say this in private. Some have uttered. I'm talking about common Muslims. I've never heard any ruler come forward yet and say such a thing, but this is happening. And so we as Muslims, we are not to rule by anything other than subhanahu wa ta'ala's law. And what governs our ways and means is from the sunnah of our prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, not some Tubab in Europe, not some Tubab sitting in the White House in America. We are not to copy them. They have their own rules and laws. We have our own rules and laws. The Muslims today, especially the modern Muslims, as you know, I've been harping on them, they go to TV, they go to movies, and they try to find, to emulate the disbelievers. And they vacate the Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam. And some of them, when you talk to them, they'll admit and say, look, hey, I'm living in modern times. As I heard me say many times, I don't live in the 7th century anymore, so I don't need to dress like a Muslim. I don't have to act like a Muslim. I don't even have to read the Quran. I don't even have to pray. I don't have to do anything. I just say I'm Muslim and that's it. And we have many of them saying this today. But this here, number 4, tell you that these people are doing this. They're disbelievers. They're gone. They're out of Islam. There's no ifs, ands, buts about it. Because when a Muslim says that a Tubab, a disbeliever Tubab, and his guidance, his government, his rule, his ways and mean, his philosophies is better than that of the Prophet, you're gone. You're out. There's no ifs, ands, buts about it. There's no, well, we give him a reprieve because this and that. No, he's out. Now, we have to say, again, as we talked about many times, we have to give our brothers and sisters in the Western states a reprieve to a degree because they may not have this knowledge. And many of them, because of the stress and the strain, we're not talking about the Muslim who goes to work in McDonald's or he works in a restaurant, he works in a company. He can't go into a company looking like me. We know that. He can't come in with a tobe and so forth and so on. He can't wear the kufi, the Islamic kufis, the head caps and so forth like that. He can't do that. And so we're not talking about that individual. We're not talking about this person because you live in the West. You have to abide by the rules because the Prophet ﷺ did say you have to follow their rules. Of course, when it conflicts, then that's another issue. But our Muslim brothers and sisters who live in the West, they have no choice. They work in Fortune 500 companies. They're not going to tolerate, they barely tolerate you because you are a black person or you Pakistani or you are Indian. See, or you are Arab. They have little tolerance for us. So when you come inside their office and you dress like a Muslim, you can imagine what's going to happen. They're not going to like it. So you have to adapt to the area that you're in. They're talking about the Muslim who makes utterances. He says, look, I'm not going to follow the Sunnah. I don't believe in this. I don't believe in that. These are the ones that they're talking about. This is the person who makes the utterances and that he is not going to follow our prophet, and he believes that the way of the Tubab is the best way forward. He is a kafir, okay? He's a disbeliever. Anyone who says such a thing is a disbeliever. And yet we have many Muslims who believe like this. We have many Muslims who are acting like this. We have many Muslims who utter this, and they're disbelievers. Now, those in the West, again, they may get a reprieve. They may say, I didn't know. I thought as long as I make my prayer, as long as I made Psalm, I can have certain beliefs. I believe that the American system is better than the Islamic system. I hear this all the time. When they say that, they don't understand that they had just apostated out. But when you tell them, say, look, I must tell you, my dear brother, what you just said is apostasy. You can't say that. And many of them will say, oh, I didn't know that. Now, and then they go back. Well, what's in their heart, we can't govern that. We can't govern what's in their heart. They come back and say, look, astaghfirullah, Allah forgive me. Then we can do nothing about him. Now, if I go to Yahya and he's uttered these things, and I say, Yahya, do you know you just made apostasy, my dear brother? You just said that the Tubab's ways and means and his governance is better than that of the prophet. And you know this is an apostasy, and this is one from the Nواقض of Islam, number 10. I mean, this is number 4 of that. He says, I don't care. Then, you move on because he's gone. Even though he's in the West, you gave him the dalil, you gave him the hujjah, you gave him the proofs and stuff and the evidence that show that this is apostasy. So this type of individual, you move away from him. You move away from him because he's apostated out. Now, let's give some of the things about these persons who do this. The Muslim who believes in this type of thing, that the Tubab or the Chinese or the Hispanics or their governance and their ways and means is better than that of our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. These individuals adopt the advice from evil, and they believe that the ways and means of the disbelievers, as I've said, is better than that of the prophet. That's one of the conditions that we hear many times. And on top of that, this type of disbelief is in their utterances and in their actions. Sometimes they may not say that, but you can get to the bottom of it when you ask him a question. You say, today's Jummah, and we should do this, and the guy said, look, you know what? I don't want to go inside the masjid because I have to dress like a Muslim. Now you know that because we have the sunnah, we have a certain way we're supposed to appear inside the masjid, especially Salat al-Jumu'ah, which is our Friday our congregational prayers. He has to appear in there. He says he doesn't want to. Why? Because he has to appear as a Muslim. These are the type of person I'm talking about this number one condition here. The other is the believing that the tyrants, the rules of the tyrant, you see Russia, China, when Trump was in the office, that ex-President Trump and other tyrants in the world, and they believe in that type of tyranny and they adopt their ways and means. This is a condition as well to tell you that this person has went away from the sunnah of our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And we see this today. We see this. We have Muslim rulers who watch these tyrants and these disbelieving countries in the West, and they begin to adopt their ways and means so they can stay in power 40, 50, 60 years, or they can put their cronies in power. And so who do? They go mimic these guys. They're apostates. They're gone. And that's one of the conditions. As you arm yourself, you can say, okay, now I see. And when you see suddenly a ruler come and he begin to adopt the same things as he see in Russia or in China or in Nicaragua or something like this, you know this so-called brother is gone. He's out. He's apostated out. We as Muslims can adopt anything from any disbelievers. No way, no how. And the Prophet ﷺ has made that clear. And that's why this is in Nواقض. Now, also in this, the Muslim who promotes democracy, or he promotes tyranny because he watches certain governments in the world, and he promotes this for his own country. He promotes this. And we have Muslims who work in government, or we have even rank and file Muslims who walk down the street. They have no power, but they promote the ways and means of the Russians or the Americans or the French. And this is a one thing in the tafsir of this fourth one. the consensus is very harsh on this. And what the consensus are, the ulama and fuqaha have said in every ear about this particular Muslim who watches the disbelievers, the tyrants, the bullies, the malcontented troublemakers and their governments in the West. And he begins to emulate that and begins to promote it even in his land. They are very, very hard on this. And I will say this in Arabic. He says, this is the consensus of the ulama and fuqaha from every era. They said that this person, okay, I'm going to say this, innahu kana murtaddan kafiran. Surely he is a apostated disbeliever. Not just a disbeliever, he's an apostated disbeliever. This is strong words. For this particular mishap or disbelief that this Muslim who watches the Americans, watch the French, watch the Russians and the Chinese, and he began to mimic what they do, how they mistreat their population. Like in the United States, he sees that the American government is killing black people. So he has black people maybe in his land, or he has people that they don't like. So he says, okay, I see how the police do over here in the United States. I have in Morocco, we have Tuareg. We don't like them. So let's start stopping them. We'll do the same thing the Americans do. This is what we're talking about here. And we have that. We have Muslims mimicking the things that we see disbelievers are doing. We have this. You heard what the scholars say. Not only he's a disbeliever, he's an apostated disbeliever. That's harsh. That means there's no recovery for you. You are an apostated disbeliever. I mean, it's harsh. It's very harsh. So that's why, my brothers and sisters, I say the Nواقض Islam is so harsh and it's very difficult. But our friends who are our enemies, they don't want this discussed. They don't want you to have this kind of information. The last one of this is that the Muslim believes that for his people, that other governance, democratic, communism, Taoism, thugism, banana boat politics, Pineapple Express ways and means. Okay, all of these expressions they use, they prefer that. And they believe this is more complete than that of the rule of our prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam. This individual as well falls into this category. Remember I said in Arabic, innahu kana murtaddan kafiran. Innahu kana murtaddan kafiran. Innahu kana murtaddan kafiran. This person surely is a disbeliever. It's strongly worded in the grammar in this to emphasize the gravity of this type of disbelief. Now, we have Dalil here, and we have, which is the Surah 58. And Surah, I think it's 58, Surah 58. And I gave you some of the as a matter of fact, I've written those things. I've written them down too. I think it's Surah 58. Excuse me, 53. And the Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, in this particular surah, he has a lot of things to say. And what is beautiful about this is that in here, we're given examples of why you must follow the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Now, let me say this again. Let's go back to what I remember I talked about almost every week now, because we have Christians and Jews, we have others who don't believe. Remember, the books of the Vedas, they're the Hindus. The Christian book, okay, the Bible. We have the scholars of the Torah, okay, the learned men. All three know that there was a prophet to come. All of them mentioned him by name. This is what is fascinating. The Vedas, the Hindu Vedas, our prophet was named, and his father. They said, you know him by his name and the name of his father. And they gave the name. They gave the name. In the Bible, they gave Ahmed. In the Torah, they don't necessarily list it in that way, but the scholars wrote in their books that this prophet was going to come among the Arabs. And after they found out and they questioned our prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, they knew it was him. That means those three, the Hindus, the Jews and Christians, our religion supersedes theirs now. It stopped Hinduism. It stopped Judaism. It stopped Christianity. You're supposed to go to Islam because why? He's the last and final prophet. The proof of this and why we have to follow, why we follow him is in this particular surah. Number 3, subhanahu wa ta'ala says, nor does he say anything of his own desire. Number 4, talking about our prophet, alayhi salatu salam. It is no less that inspiration sent down to him. That's interesting. This means the guidance that our prophet, when he talks to you and he lays down rules and laws, this is a divine revelation that's coming to him. This is why the most sacred books in Islam, of course, is the Quran. But what's after that? It's the Sunnah of our prophet. And so subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling that what he says, his ways and means, is an inspiration. It's been sent down to him. And then here's number 23, which I find very interesting. In the same surah, this is surah 53, he says, these are nothing but names which you have devised, you and your fathers, for which Allah has sent down no authority whatsoever. They follow nothing but conjecture and what their own souls desire, even though there have already come to them guidance from their Lord. Christians, Jews, Muslims, atheists, there's been guidance given to you. Every person on this earth has heard Islam. No one is, even some of the people in Amazon probably know of Islam. Probably some of the other places like in the Sea of Bengal, I think they have, remember the Africans who've been in there for thousands and thousands of years. They probably haven't because no one can enter their islands, like a Sentinel Island, a place like that, right off India. They might not have heard of Islam because they don't allow any foreigners to come in there. But most of all civilizations today, everywhere we're at, the countries, everybody's heard of Islam. So we've heard of the guidance, and they're not accepting it. They're making up their own religions. Subhanahu wa ta'ala is not accepting it. He talks about this in 23 because he says that it was sent down when the Allah has sent down no authority whatsoever. He did not tell people to create a democracy. He did not. He didn't tell anybody to create Taoism. He did not sanction communism. He didn't sanction any of those things. Atheism. He didn't sanction any of that stuff. And the names they conjured up, like the Hindus. Okay, they even though Buddha gave the revelation, and Buddha, many said, was a prophet. He said, you don't follow him. You follow him, but you don't worship him. And what did the Hindus do? They manufactured, I forgot, 1,000 and some different gods in violation of their own scriptures. And Zaki Naik, our dear scholar brother, who's in Malaysia now, he dissected the Vedas very well, and he's an expert on this, and he talked about their error in their ways. But as you can see, what's happening in India today, the Hindus are coming to Islam in droves after all the calamity and death, and the virus has killed thousands upon thousands. Many Hindus now saw the light, and they're coming to Islam, alhamdulillah. So we see here that subhanahu wa ta'ala in this particular surah says that our prophet is guided by revelations. He's being guided. So therefore, his rule, his ways and means, his sunnah, his governance is the best that human being can muster. You must follow it. And I say this to the non-Muslims. if you read about, and you've been following me, you starting to hear a lot about the prophet and the way these things can help even the disbelievers. This is why so many times the disbelievers, they start to listen to the Quran and something hits them. And then they come to Islam, or they start to find out the ways of our prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam. They hear his story. They are brought to tears. Then they come to Islam. So there's a reason for that. And as I specified last week, our prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, was voted the most influential person ever in world history. This is not me did this. These are not Muslim scholars. These are two well-noted historians who came up with this, and they're not Muslims. So there must be something to this, my brothers and sisters, that our prophet was the best of creations, and he was. Now, let me tell you what our prophet alayhi salatu wasalam said in a hadith. He used beautiful words in Arabic to describe what the tafsir of this particular the fourth nullifier, where he talks about the guidance from subhanahu wa ta'ala and what happens and so forth. And you must adhere to our prophet and his ways. And because, again, as we specify, subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you here in this beautiful surah that the inspiration is sent down to him. It's sent down to him. He's rightfully guided by subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's guided him. We must follow these type of persons. You think about today, if the governments of the world ruled by the way the prophet ﷺ has ruled, all the tyranny be gone. Wars, there be none. We would have very little persecution. There would be no racism. The economic system that's killing the world today, is destroying the world, will be gone. We would be under the Islamic system, which is the best. And speaking of that, as I told him many times, you watch some of the Islamic banks, like Devon Bank in Chicago, I think it's Chicago, Illinois. Look how solvent they are. Why are they high? Their solvency is much higher. They never experienced any bankruptcy. Oh, why is that? You know why? They operate in the Islamic banking system. There's other banks in the United States too now that's opened up. And those banks are very solvent, very, very solvent. Because subhanahu wa ta'ala is blessing them. The interest-based system is killing the world today. We know that. So if they used the prophet's ways and mean, we would not have all the trouble we have today. And subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed our prophet with a lot of wisdom. And because of his persona, he picked the right human being, because even as a child, he was special. All the people knew the prophet ﷺ was special by his demeanor, by the way he acted. They knew there was something different about him. Subhanahu wa ta'ala handpicked him to be the new and remaining last prophet before Yom Kiyama until the last hour. And so our prophet is the best of creations. And we as Muslims and non-Muslims should rediscover this and begin to follow his way. That's the only way to salvation, because the Russian way is not going to work. The American way is not working. The French way is not working. The British way is not working. We have turmoil all over the place. We have disasters all over the place. We have economic failures all over the place, not because of the Muslims, because of the ways of the disbelievers, because of their banking system, which is man-made. We see all of these calamities, and subhanahu wa ta'ala is putting a whammy all over the United States with weather, bugs, strife, killings. We see all of these things. So our prophet ﷺ was talking about how the persons are supposed to look at the governance of subhanahu wa ta'ala and him. And he says here, and I said in Arabic, inna khayran kelim Allah. meaning that the best speech from Allah and the best speech is from what? And best advice is from our prophet. So here in this hadith, he has verified that subhanahu wa ta'ala has made him the best of creations that we to follow, because you have the best of speech that's coming from the Quran. Then you have the revelations, right, that was sent to our prophet and given him this wisdom. And so, and what? Inspiration, wisdom, inspiration, and speech. Our prophet spoke beautifully. He spoke beautifully. His Arabic was top notch. And so it was easy to follow him. And so this is something, my brothers and sisters, that we should think about and ponder. Even the non-Muslims. The non-Muslims can benefit from learning from our prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, because his ways are the best. And this is why the Muslims, the tafsir of this is harsh from many of the modern scholars today who are very angry, to be honest with you, with many of the rulers in the Muslim world. And when you look at their some of the tafsir about this, they are very angry about this. And I'll give you, and I won't name these scholars because our scholars today are under attack. You know, they've been killed and they've been jailed all over the place. But on this fourth one here, one of the scholars brought up the fact, and I'll say this in Ma'idah, which is the fifth surah, and remember the famous 3, 44, 45, and 46. These are the verses where subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about this issue about Muslims, Jews, Christians, Hindus, and others who don't rule by his law. He calls them disbelievers. He calls them fasiq, disobedient, and he calls them my English. Dalim. He's he persecuted. He's a tyrant. So here they use that to describe many of the rulers today and many of the Muslims, and they talk about, because this 44 in particular, judging by laws other than those revealed by Allah, can be divided in two sections. And this is interesting. He says here, attempting to replace what subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed. We see this today. You have the Sharia Islamiyah, they replace it with democratic ways and means, with man-made laws, from the taghut, from the evil. This is without doubt kufr, they say. Many of the scholars say this, because he who does not attempt to place himself in the position of the creator. So what he's saying here, and I never thought about it in this way until I read the tafsir. They were saying that the people who are making these rules and laws are trying to make themselves out to be the creator, because subhanahu wa ta'ala has already given the laws. So why are they changing his laws? So they think of themselves as subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they change the laws by legislating for the people by using their own ways of men. You hear what the scholars said. This is disbelief. Then he says, keeping what Allah has revealed, intact, and leaving it legislation for leaders, rulers, presidents, kings, etc., who judge by man-made laws from these. So again, we have same thing. We see in some countries where the people are under the Sharia, but the rulers are not. When someone goes to steals, they chop their hand. When somebody gets caught for adultery, they stone them to death. But then you have many of the people that's under the ruling class, they're doing this every day, and they're exempt from those laws. This is what we're talking about in this particular situation here. And it's wrong. And they give conditions to these people who are doing this leader. A leader judging by laws that contradict what Allah has revealed, laws of Allah, believing that they are equal or better. This is considered kufr, meaning, again, as we've been specifying, these people who say, you know what, I'm a Muslim, but I I don't like the Sharia. Okay, the second one is the leader is judging by man-made laws in order to harm the one who he has made a judgment against. We see this all over the world, not only the Muslims. Here, they know the Sharia. They know the Sharia, they can't do this, but they make another law under the Sharia so they can punish an adversary, maybe killing, because you can't do that in Islam. So they make another law that make it lawful for him to go after a adversary who he doesn't want to see him come to power. When you go and take his wealth, you have no right to do that. Or you go jail his son and his wife and daughter. And this is against the Sharia. This is what they're talking about here. They know they know the laws of Sharia, you can't do it. So all of a sudden they institute a new law so they can harm opposition leaders and so forth and so on. This is what they're talking about here. And in this case, we do not say the ruler is a kafir, but he's an oppressor. This is what I mean by saying by dalam, he's an oppressor. So this is what they mean by this. And so he's not considered to be a disbeliever. And the leader who avoiding judging by what Allah has revealed in order to expose some inner desires or benefit himself or someone else, this is what they call a major sin. It's not actually kufr. It rises to kufr if somebody from the fuqaha or scholar goes to a ruler and say, hey, Yahya, I must ask you something. You have now made laws that put money into your family's pocket. That money, those taxes are designed to go for the people, but you have made a law that's designed so your son, your uncle, your brothers, and your wife and him can get this money and go buy, villas. This is what they're talking about here. This is an inner desire that he has. They don't consider that kufr because he's not saying that subhanahu wa ta'ala's laws are no good. It's just that he has a desire. He wants the riches of the land. So he begins to make laws where he can put the money in his pocket. We see this all over the world today as well. So I'm hoping that you can understand this. This may be tedious, but these are all nullifiers. These things will take you out of Islam. And if you sit down and think about it, you think about the rulers around the world, you see this everywhere. We got rulers been in power 40, 50, 60 years. And some of them can't even see straight anymore, and they're still in power. And you have others who've been in power 20, 30 years. You have other Muslims who are ruling, like you see what's happening in Egypt. Egypt is really disgrace. It's really Egypt. What's happening in Egypt is really bad. And the Turkish president Erdogan, one of the best countries as a Muslim countries you can find today is Turkey. There's no doubt about that. And the other one too, when you can think about the people and the ways and means, yes, there's problems. It's also Morocco. We have many scholars starting to arrive here. Why? Because they're finding peace. Even though you are a scholar, you're not going to have a lot of opposition to you, like in some other countries like Egypt, where they'll kill the scholars. And the Muslim countries are going after scholars a lot, and they jailing them and killing them and taking their wealth and so forth and so on. It's a disgrace. I would say this also. The Muslim states now that are under the Sharia, and as a matter of fact, I was talking to my wife about this. One, the Maldives. Look how wealthy they are. Look at their prosperity. Before they came to the Sharia, they were having problems. Suddenly they came to the Sharia, and what happened? They began to blossom. Very interesting, isn't it? Then let's look at Brunei. Brunei has always had its wealth, but it was being stolen, but they always had problems. When they declared 100% Sharia, their economic base is very powerful. Their prosperity is very powerful, to the point that in Brunei, everybody was given a house. Can you believe that? Everybody, they used the wealth of the land, which is Sharia Islamia, and they gave it back to the people, and they put people in homes. So there's no mortgages, unless you go to buy other homes, of course. But you get one home, that's yours. There's no mortgage for that. It's your home, and the deed is in your name. This is the beauty of the Sharia. This is the beauty of man, that man-made laws cannot give you. And also in Indonesia, they have a province that was hit by that hurricane. Remember 2005? They're ruling by the Sharia. You have parts of Pakistan where they have the governance by the Sharia. You have other parts in Afghanistan also who's ruled by the Sharia. So we do have them. We do have those states. But in particular, Maldives and Brunei are off the charts as far as economics, well-being, the ways and means are beautiful. There's less crime because they're operating under the Sharia. This is important evidence. Now let's go to the fifth here, nullifier. The fifth nullifier is also dramatic as well. And this one here, I'm going to cover something, and I'm probably going to anger the ladies because I've been after the brothers for a while, but now I this particular one, I have to talk about our sisters in this. The fifth nullifier is whoever hates anything of what the prophet came with has committed kufr. Bottom line, over. There's no negotiating. Even if he practices it, the thing that which the prophet has come with. Now you say, Yahya, what are you talking about? What is it that you want to go after the sisters about? Well, let me explain this. One of the things that we have a problem in right now is polyandry, meaning the man can marry more than one wife. Let me explain the errors and the ways of some of our sisters who may not even know about this nullifier. So we have to give them a reprieve because they may not know. When Subhanahu wa ta'ala is given authority for the man to marry up to 4 wives, we know the conditions. It's not meaning that you have to. It's not saying that you got to do it today and tomorrow. No, you can do it if circumstances are right, if you can be fair, which we know no one can be there because the Prophet ﷺ has given a tafsir of that. And he's made sure that who's ever going to do this, it's you have to be really, really good at it. And most of us cannot do this. We cannot marry more than one wife and be good in that regard because we have problems even with the first. So how can we be good with the second? But that's not the point here. The point is we have sisters who are angry about what they read in the Quran, and then they make utterances. This is apostasy on their part. Meaning I heard it on YouTube many times when they have this discussion, I heard Muslims say they didn't like this. They don't like this ruling. They're out. They say, I will not follow it. They've apostated. They say that this is not right. And, and I'm going to leave or whatever. They start talking crazy. They've apostated out. Now, if the sister who comes back and she knows this, okay, you talk about this particular nullifier, but she says something like this, I am angry. I don't want to see my husband marry another woman, but I know this is the law. I know this is Subhanahu wa ta'ala is granted my husband the right to marry a second woman, but I don't want to share my husband with another woman. That's not apostasy. She's covered. All she's saying is she doesn't want to see her husband marry another woman, and she doesn't want to share. That's not apostasy. The others is apostasy because they said they don't like the ruling. Secondly, some say they will not follow it. Some say that they will fight against it and rule against it. Others say that they want another ruling that allows them to have 5 or 6 husbands. These are the stuff is apostasy. But the sister who says, you know what? I know Subhanahu wa ta'ala's law is true. I understand it, but I'm selfish. I want my husband only for myself. I don't want to see him marry another woman because I have a tendency to be more jealous maybe than some other women. And I will not be able to act right with my sister as she's the second wife. That's not apostasy. That's not apostasy. That's improved behavior. That's understandable. We understand what the woman's makeup is. I mean, the best to our ability as a man. So that's not apostasy. So I hope you guys see the difference here on that. Okay. And again, I'll say that and then I'll move on. The sisters who you see on YouTube a lot, the Muslim sisters, a lot of them, they are, I mean, fires coming out of their mouth. The minute you mention in Surah Nisa, where Subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the right of the man to marry up to 4 women, fire comes out of their mouth. That's apostasy. I hate it. I don't like it. I don't want to follow it. So forth and so on. All kind of things coming out of their mouth. That's hypocrisy. But some of the sisters that came in the chat in some of these programs that had it, and they said, you know what? I know that Subhanahu wa ta'ala is changing this. I understand that. But I want my husband only for myself. That's the difference. She's not apostate. She's not apostate. She's still a Muslimah. She just told the truth, and it's human nature. She said, I want my husband for myself. There's nothing wrong with that. She's good to go under the Islamic rules of law. Under fiqh, she is okay. But the other ones are apostated out. So I'm hoping, my brothers and sisters, that you guys see the difference on that. The other, I have to get back on the brothers more so on this. I've been harping the last couple of weeks about a brother who got on TV, YouTube TV, and made a apostated declaration again about relationships between man and woman. The makram rule in Islam, meaning me as a man, I cannot go around with women who are not my family. Okay, you know what I mean? Cousins, aunties, sisters, this type of thing. Okay, he said it's too conservative. He will not follow it. And he said openly he will not follow that. And he's been on and he continues to do the same thing. He's with different women and so forth and so on. That is apostasy. That's the condition we're talking about here, because he said he didn't like it. The minute you say you don't like something, that's out. Now, if you don't like something, you put it in your heart. Don't utter it. This is between you and Subhanahu wa ta'ala, because I can't know what's in your heart. I can't judge you for that. I cannot. I can only judge you is when you talk. When you say, that's too conservative, I don't want to follow it. Then there's a judgment on you. Now the scholars can look at you and say, you just apostated out. But when you keep it in your heart, that's between you and Subhanahu wa ta'ala. He will examine your niyyah. That's his domain, not ours. So it's a difference. So I had to put that part to show, again, the balance. We have the sisters who have their thing about the polyandry. And then we have the brothers, a lot of them that don't like some of the laws, because some of the brothers too have made utterances about Christian women. They don't understand why we can't marry them today. And they've said they don't like it. They maybe doesn't understand what they have said, but they've apostated out. And, it's a serious business. And many of them don't know about the nawaqids, the disqualifiers, the nullifiers of their religion. Many of them don't know. And we have to give many people a reprieve because they don't know. And I said, the enemy don't want people to know about this because it wakes the people up. Now, the sisters who may review this, or someone may come to talk to the sisters about this, they say, you know what, I heard Sheikh Yahya talking about a thing about we've been apostating. Remember, sisters, we've been talking against the brothers, and about Subhanahu wa ta'ala, he's got the rule in the Quran that the brothers can marry up to 4 wives, and we made these statements. Now they've learned. Now they clean that up and say, Subhanahu wa ta'ala, please forgive me for that. Those people are okay because they've now learned. But believe me, the ignorance on the Nwaaqid al-Islam is not only sitting in LA, it's in Morocco, it's in Egypt, it's in Sudan, it's in all the Muslim states, because the Islamic education is gone, just about gone. They don't know about these rules. And many of them apostated out because they didn't understand. But that judgment will lay to Subhanahu wa ta'ala because a lot of the education has gone, even in the Muslim states. So again, the rulers, there are scholars that talked in here talking about the conditions, again, about this nullifier here, number 5. And again, he says here, this is the consensus. This is the consensus of our fuqaha ulama. They said the person who knows that the action they reject or dislike is an affirmed Islamic rule in the Quran and Sunnah, meaning, again, they know it. The sisters know it is. They know Subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent it down. They know the Prophet has authorized it. And they turn back around and says, I don't like it. I will not follow it. I will fight it. I will not let my husband do it. I will talk against it. I will even go to the Tubab to get him to make legislation to arrest the Muslims who do it. This type of stuff like this that you hear the sisters say, This is what they're talking about here. It's apostasy. You're gone. You're out. The second one is there must be a consensus on this ruling. If one dislikes a ruling that that's in dispute, then this is not kufr. Meaning, in this instance, we're talking about the slot. The four doctrines of Islam, the four great doctrines of Islam, are three of them have concurred, but one is in dissent about the ruling of kufr and persons who do not pray. The other, the three says if he doesn't pray, he's a kafir. That's it. But the fourth one says no. They want him to talk to. They want to give him a chance. They want him to be re-educated before they make a judgment, a takfir on him, and that he's a kafir, and they want to do this. And the other three says no, we should not do this. Now, this type of ruling like this is not kufr. This is not kufr, okay? Because what if this one guy, he heard the one school of thought says, you know what? These guys who pray sometimes they don't. They're not disbelievers. So he heard that. So he believes that. So he carries on. Sometimes he prays during the week. Other times he don't pray. Maybe he prays on Jumu'ah and maybe on Saturday and Sunday. And then the other days of the week he don't want to pray. So he says, look, I'm following what I heard of the one madhab, one of the doctrines say. You see what I'm talking about? The other three says, no, you're a disbeliever. But the fourth one says, no, we can't call him that. We must do this and that and so forth and so on. This is what we're talking about here. This is not kufr. This person is not a kafir because we have a dispute among our scholars. So I hope that you guys can understand the differences here. So in recap, my brothers and sisters, today, number 4 is a serious one. And, I gave you some of the proofs here, and I've talked about the issues of this. And I'm hoping that you guys do your own research and that you understand the seriousness of the Nواقض al-Islam, that it will hurt you and your Islam. You must learn about it. I don't know everything, okay? And I probably will not learn everything, even to my grave, because Islam is so vast. And you may not get hurt by this, but you try to learn as much as you can, and you're not held responsible for what you do not know. But as I said to you last week, what's may hurt our brothers in the West, like in America and Canada and so forth and so on, is that now the media is so rich now with Islamic information. You can find out many, and we do have scholars on YouTube who give free lessons. If you want to know about the Sharia, there's many, even in English now, in English. So there's no excuse for you not to understand the Sharia. And you want to know the issues of fiqh, and you want to know something about salat. We have that. We have it even in English now. The sisters, because they have special needs, they need to know what happens with them when they have their cycles. What happens after they have childbirth? When can they pray? You understand? There's all these issues now. You can find them on Google. You Google it, and there's many to give you answers to this. So this reprieve is going to dwindle in time, and our brothers and sisters who's living in the West won't have this reprieve because they're going to be judged for it. And that's another of a Nواقض number 10. We'll get into that, inshallah ta'ala. So again, number 4, we talked about the fourth issue and recap real quick, and then we'll end this. The belief that the guidance of someone other than the prophet is more perfect than his guidance, that the ruling of other than the prophet alayhi salatu wasalam is better than his ruling, or the permissibility of accepting ruling from other than what Allah has revealed. This is the fourth one we talked about, and again, it's a serious one, and it's apostasy, my brothers and sisters. Bottom line, it's apostasy. And we went through the explanations. We told in Surah 58, we told about the verses 3 and 4, and also in 23, and to give the proof why we should follow the prophet is because he's the best of creations. Why is that? Because subhanahu wa ta'ala is told, he says he does what he say, okay, excuse me, nor does he say anything of his own desire. It is no less than inspiration sent down to him. This is a proof from subhanahu wa ta'ala that our prophet has given revelations. This is why his guidance, his rulings, his ways and means are perfect. Okay. And therefore we must follow that. We must follow that. And any of us who are Muslims who don't follow this is Nwaaqid number 4. And you're out as a Muslim. You've apostated out unless we have these other conditions. Remember, like I talked about. And then we went into the fifth, I just mentioned here, the fifth nullifier, whoever hates anything of what the prophet came with has committed kufr, disbelief, even if he practices it. Again, I made the reference to some of our dear sisters who are very, very angry and upset about the polyandry where their husbands and Muslim men can marry up to 4 women. We have many sisters very angry and disturbed about this. And many of them have made apostasy. They didn't even know about what they uttered. And we talked about that. And we talked about the brother who, and some of the other brothers too, who out in the West, especially, who don't like it because they think that they should be able to marry any woman, Hindu, a woman who's into Taoism or Shintoism, or atheist woman, without anything. They can do it, but they can't. And so they talk against rulings of our Prophet, ﷺ. That's apostasy. And about the brother who went on and talking about, hey, you know, I want to be able to go and flat knives with women. I want to be able to hold their hand. I want to be able to date them. I want to be able to do things to them, even though he's got a beautiful wife sitting at home. He still wants the trappings to go outside and play around with other women. And he said he will not follow the prophet. These are what we talked about in this. He hates the rulings from the prophet that he got from subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he won't follow it. That's number 5th nullifier. He's an apostate. And you remember something in 4, I gave you the Arabic of what the consensus of our ulama fuqaha have said. They talked about the people who are doing these type of things, who utter against the Prophet ﷺ, or who says that some other ruling is better than his, that the Russian president and the American president and the Chinese president and the French president are better. Their ways of being are better than our Prophet ﷺ. Our rulers, our ulama fuqaha scholars from every era said this in Arabic: "Inhu kana murtaddan kafiran," is strong, meaning he is a apostated disbeliever. That's ugly words. That's ugly. Apostated disbeliever. I mean, that's like being called, you know, some bad words in English. This is what has been told about these people. So my brothers and sisters, I covered these 2 here, and we'll cover some others here, inshallah ta'ala. I want to thank my sister Bina, thank my sister Amina for showing up, and the ones who are in the chat and ones in the future as well, and that they got something out of this lesson. I know that these are mundane for a lot of people, and many people may not like them, but it's needed, because when we talk about the Aqeedah, you have to always talk about what's good in it. You got to talk about what take you from the Aqeedah. And we have Tawheed, and Tawheed is not just one thing only. Tawheed is a vast, vast, vast array of topics. And one of the topics is the Nwaaqid, the nullifiers of Islam. And we have to talk about that. No student of knowledge can skip past this. He's not right, because that's part of the Aqeedah, is to understand about the Nwaaqid that takes out the brothers and sisters from Islam. You must talk about this. You cannot ignore this. But we do have some that do this out of fear. We understand it. I'm not going to judge them. They live in a state where they can't, at some Muslim state or in some country where they can't talk. That's between them and subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're not getting a judgment from me. I'm not going to say nothing against them, because I understand they have family to feed, And what are they going to do if they go in jail, house their wives, and they got little children at home? How are they going to fend for themselves in this modern time? I understand this. So they rather be quiet. I'm not faulting them for that. You'll never hear me go after them for this. I won't. So my brothers and sisters, again, like I said, we covered this today, and we'll go into I think I'm going to skip the sixth one. The sixth one deals with, I'm trying to remember now. The sixth is come on now. It's dealing with, oh boy, I'm trying to hear now. Come on now. Number 6 is the one that when I think you talk, you mock the religion. Most Muslims don't do that today. So I'm going to skip the 6, and now we're going to 7. This will be inshallah ta'ala in a couple of days, if subhanahu wa ta'ala grants me the permission, I'm still in life. Number 7 is a serious one as well. And this here, now we go back to Africa for this, because Africa is noted for this type of stuff all over the place, from Morocco all the way down to South Africa. The 7th one is involvement of sorcery. It is big in Africa. We all know that. And believing in sorcerers, fortune telling, astrologers. I'll get into that, inshallah ta'ala, in a couple of days or so, if subhanahu wa ta'ala grants me the permission, we still alive. So my brothers and sisters, thank you for showing up and those in the future. And I'm hoping that subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses you and he keeps you safe, especially my brothers and sisters in the United States. Please be careful. Please be careful. There's a lot of crime out there and a lot of killing. Please be careful. Okay. Don't do anything that will cause the death of you and your children. As usual, you know me, I'm going to talk to my brothers and sisters here again. My brothers and sisters, you have teenage boys and maybe even the girls. Go back to the system that I remember when we were little, when we had the chaperone system, where our parents is looking over our shoulders. I remember I hated it, but I see the wisdom behind it. I think that we should reinstitute that. There's no harm in making sure our blossoming sons, they can have a future. You drive them, if they want to meet their friends, you drive them to McDonald's and drive them back. No problem. Give him his freedom. Let him stay there with McDonald's 2 or 3 hours, or drive him, let him go to the mall. He said, Mom, I want to go to the mall. You drive him there. That way you can help to protect him, because because we know the Tuba police are after them. So I talk about this. I know it's not an Islamic issue per se, but it is one. And I'm just now, as an old man, I'm looking at the wisdom of my father and my parents. I love that system. And I think we should institute that, because our boys are a target. Our young men are a target. The cops see them driving down the street in mom's car, or dad's and pop's car. And then they bait them and they get them to be argumentative and they shoot them. We know the drill. So we should have the chaperone system reinstituted by protecting our sons and daughters. So, okay, my brothers and sisters, that's just me talking. Again, thank you for showing up. And my dear sister, Abina, thank you, my dear sister from Compton. We go way, 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 way back. My dear sister, Amina, she's always here to support me. I appreciate that. She's my dear sister in faith. And those who will show up in the future, and I give you the beautiful words of Jannah. Salamu alaikum, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.